the madhouse.
Cheers to episode 31.
To episode 30.
Cheers. It's episode 31.
I got some tea.
I don't have anything.
Rough week. I had body armor again.
Alex has a dry,
Mouth.
sticky mouth.
I got a dry Sahara sandpaper mouth right now.
Today is Tuesday, July 27th, 7:52 p.m. We just wrapped up an interview with the President of the United States. Just kidding. You'll see who we're interviewing. And, well, time travel. We're 48-ish hours away from right now from drafting Cade Cunningham. Alex, I'll punch you in the mouth if you read my script. One day away if you're listening to this podcast tomorrow from drafting Cade Cunningham. And less than 24 hours away if you're listening to this podcast on Thursday. If you're listening to this on Friday like a psychopath, we already drafted him.
Or we drafted Jalen Green.
Well, this podcast won't exist if that happens.
No, I will.
X.
It'll be a solo
I'm
show.
out.
Yeah, and I think our listener count would go to 2.
Or to the moon
Your
because
dog?
everyone wants to hear how disappointed we
Your
are.
dog and your grandma would tune in for the Alex Gillen hour-long talk to himself show.
Talking myself into Jalen Green.
It'd just
That's
be
what we
Alex
do.
like talking about rumors to himself on recruiting boards.
It'd be good stuff. People would love to tune in. Maybe, you know what, guys? I'm leaving the podcast. I'm starting my own.
See you, man. But before we dive into sports topics, how was everyone's week?
It was good. The first 2 days were spent, recovering. We already talked about that last week. And then the rest of my week was not eventful. And then yesterday I played golf against Evan on league.
Oh,
But maybe I'll wait till Evan talks first and then I'll break it down. The beating it was.
oh boy. Okay.
Yeah.
Evan, you go.
So I'll go.
Yeah.
So last week, not much was happening since we last talked. Friday night,
Look at us.
got to play the local country club with some friends. That was enjoyable.
Golf
And
club,
then-
Evan. I don't really care, but I know people care when you say country club.
The golf club. It's not a country club.
It's a snooty establishment.
It's Bushwind.
And I never mind.
Golf club. Okay. Did that Friday night with Connor, Colby, and Ryan. Shout out them.
What a name drop.
They don't listen.
And we were the last carts in, and we teed off at like 6, and we were the last carts in at like 9:30, probably closer to 9:45. And like the last ball that I hit, I had no idea where it went. It was so dark.
Did you get free golf?
No, I did not get free golf. And then this weekend was like the first weekend I've had off or didn't have anything going on since like May because of like travel baseball and work and all that kind of
Faster
stuff. So I
horses.
literally didn't do a damn thing. And I think I laid in bed for a good 8 hours on Saturday.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty boring. And then obviously Alex said it yesterday, big golf match between our teams, my team, myself and Drew, and then Alex and his dad are our team. And, you can't win when I blow up, played absolutely terrible. And Alex shoots right around par and Garrett shoots 2 over when his handicap's a 5.
Yeah, we took it to him, as the kids say. And Evan's blow-up hole, yeah, it wasn't pretty. We tried to talk him down from it. Just wasn't happening. He basically gave himself an 8 when he was at his third shot. It was already in his head. So he gave up mentally.
No, I was not at my third shot at that point. I was at my 5th. I said, here comes an 8.
Mentally he gave up on that hole. And then on the next hole,
Frosty the
went up
Snowman.
and piped one. Made
Yeah.
a par. So you recovered.
Hey, set it and forget it, baby. It's not about it's not how great you are at golf, it's how great you are to golf with. And Evan's
We had a good time.
a great guy to golf with.
We had a great time. And
Played a little
I'm
night
pretty
golf
sure
after.
I woke up super hungover. And yesterday was like the first time I actually dipped my toes into like drinking since Faster Horses. And I didn't just dip in. Like
Well,
I
we went
jumped
for
into
it.
the deep end, like carrying heavy weights, and I did not come back up.
Oh, that's dangerous.
I mean, it was a nosedive into it, just like jump right in. We were the last group to tee off. And so we already polished off like our beers that we got for the round. We polished it off before we
Before we
went
started.
out.
Do not hurt me.
And then Garrett was like, you know what? You guys want 2 shots? And so, we got shots after just playing 3 holes and then played a hole and a half. And then second round of shots. Let's get it.
Some shotguns.
17 tee box shotgun because I had to get rid of beer. I had like a couple left over still. And then right when we finished our round on 18, shotgun. And then we went and played an extra 2 holes. 7 irons only challenge.
Oh, that was made for me.
For those wondering at home, the final score out of 30 was 20.5 for my team and 9.5 for Evan's team.
Dang.
Wasn't
well.
bad.
As long as you guys had a great
4 more
time.
weeks left in the season. A lot of time left. 3 more regular season, and then that 4th week is position like championship week.
Time to bear down.
Yep.
Separate the men from the boys.
Correct.
My life, I wrote really nothing at all like you guys. The only things that of note, Alex, why do you always just read what I have typed out? Why don't you just listen like a podcast? Just listen. I'm approaching the Red Wedding episode on Game of Thrones. Yes. Do I know what already happens? Yes, I do. But that's where I'm at in my rewatch as this saga continues from the snake draft when I got called out. I'm right about there, but I'm really delaying it. Kind of hit a wall in the series, but I know good things are on the horizon. Sad day today. I realized that I'm trying to learn how to make rice pretty good, like on the stove. And I bought Uncle Ben's ready rice today because I was in a pinch because I didn't have any ones that you normally make, and I realized how much better Uncle Ben's microwave packs are than mine. So that was a big shot to my ego, and I just need to go back to the drawing board and try to figure it out. So if anyone has any tips, we got any listeners that know how to cook good rice on the stove, boiling water, just let me know.
I know the greatest rice maker of all time.
Alex has told me that. He's given me, I asked him to ask Lou himself, giving me a couple of tips here and there, but I need a video tutorial. I'm a visual learner. So
I'll see if I can
need
get
that. And then I don't know about you guys, but I am completely out on the Olympics. I remember when Michael Phelps was doing his thing, I enjoyed watching it, but I couldn't tell you a single thing about these Olympics. I don't really care to watch them. They just don't get it going for me.
I care about the Olympics. The times are not ideal. It's just all over the place, so it's hard to really watch because I'm at work in the morning when it's going, so I can't really see it. And then they just do reruns. But at that point, if you go on Twitter, you already see what happens. So it's not great with the time difference, but I do care. I want the U.S. to win everything. And I'm a little disappointed that we're currently not leading the gold medal count. We're leading the medal count, but not the gold medal count. And that's what matters. And USA basketball better figure it out. That's a joke. They better figure it out.
I honestly don't even care if USA basketball doesn't win gold. I don't know what it is.
Well, it sounds very un-American.
Am I dying inside? I don't know. My patriotism dying?
Maybe I
really don't care.
I mean, I care, but I'm not blaming it on the players. I'm blaming it on the GM and the coaches that constructed this team.
Right. That's a great point.
Let them fail.
Yeah, and for not playing Jeremy Grant. What's up with that?
Draymond should play a lot more, too. I don't know what's going on. He's the best defender on the team.
Yeah. It's getting closer. Yeah, we're not here into an Olympic defense debate. The rules are even different. You can goaltend in that sport. Anyways.
Yeah, I think you can.
We have a listener question. The same person who submitted the NIL question, which was very thoughtful. This is just a kind of quick one to get the brain flowing here. In the Olympic spirit, he says, if you could create an event that you have your best shot at meddling in, what would it be? It can be a sport that already exists, an activity exists, a drinking game, whatever. Mine, no doubter, first ballot is just Flip Cup. If it was me versus another guy, it was best of 7. I don't think I'd lose. See on the podium with the gold medal around my neck. I'll take a bite out of it as the Star Spangled Banner plays and some poor schlub from overseas looks up at me on the silver podium.
Yeah. I considered saying Flip Cup, and then I realized you were better, but I think I can medal in Flip Cup.
That was actually really nice of you to say that.
Yeah, it's hard to deny. You're a sweat lord. You practice in your basement every night, so what are you going to do?
True.
I mean, you can go. I don't really have anything. I'm just
not
super talented.
Loser, Alex.
I'm always the super down on myself. So when I think of if I could do this sport, but no, someone's always better than you at that sport. So I'm going to go complete just spitballing. I think I would medal in taste testing food.
Mm.
I don't know how you would be able to hand out medals for that, But like, dessert taste tester or like barbecue taste tester, I'm pretty sure I definitely would get gold.
Do we have a food savant on this podcast I didn't know about? You mean like blind food or just telling you how good it is?
Both. Try me.
Okay. We will do this actually at some point on the show when we're all together. We will
blind
gather.
taste test?
I had thought that later on for like an anniversary show, we should do a blind alcohol taste test since we are the Shot of Michigan Sports. I think that'd be very fun. We get drunk and then do the show after the blind taste testing.
Down.
Anyways, and Evan will probably win. He better win based on what he said. Although he said food though, so I guess
Thank you.
You'd be screwed on pop because you don't drink it. So they'd be like, what are these flavors?
I think he could still get it based on his confidence.
Alex, I'm going to need something out of you, even if it's just like sharpening a pencil. I don't know. Just give me something.
I think I could medal, according to you, at being a nice, energetic morning guy. I could just medal at being morning guy.
I'm trying to picture how that would play out on TV for like an audience.
Who looks the most alert when they wake up? That's me. I'm just always alert when I wake up.
I've seen you at your worst in the mornings, and it's definitely not you.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm just an average guy. I'm just average at everything. Sports is too hard because there's already pros. You can't medal in that. We would be at the Olympics if we were.
All right, Alex, if you think of a better one, just shout it out by the end of the show because I just think you're going to need to come with something better, but I want to let it ruminate.
Snap hooking tee shots, according to the listener.
Wow. Play the hits. All right. Let's dive into the main topic one, Detroit Pistons draft preview. It's got everyone hot and bothered in the streets. The logistics. So if you're listening, you're like, guys, how do we watch this? Thursday, July 29th at 8 p.m. on ABC or ESPN. Little simulcast action. That's how big of a deal it is. Our picks, the Detroit Pistons picks as of now. We have the first pick in the draft. Where have you been? Round 2, pick 37, pick 42, and pick 52. So I put out a variety of questions, and we're just going to kind of hop, skip through them, kind of bite them off in chunks here. There's a lot to tackle. I guess the most logical way here as we do our check-ins on the draft is what do you guys think we're going to do with the first pick as we are 2 days away, 48 hours away from this?
Well, with all the recent news and me thinking it's, just blowing up smoke clouds, and then the more and more news comes out, you kind of get nervous. I truly think we will draft Cade Cunningham, but I am more nervous now than I was like 2 weeks ago.
Okay. I think that's fair. I agree with you. I put percentages on it because that's how my brain works. I think there is a 90% chance we take Cade at number 1.
Well, I'm even lower than that.
75? Work with
I would say around 75 because I just am afraid that somebody in that office wants to be the smartest guy in there and be like, no, this prospect's definitely going to be the best.
Are you talking about Troy Weaver, though?
I don't know. Whoever has a big talking head and like persuade somebody to drafting their guy.
If someone has that pull to convince Troy, then I almost think that's more of a shot at Troy.
I was watching this pregame show or a hype show, and they were talking about how NBA scouts are falling in love with Jalen Green because he did play in the G League.
Yep.
And how they were comparing him. He shot from NBA regulation court 3-point line, and that he played against NBA opponents. And so they're saying how that gives him a little bit more advantage than it does when you watch Cade Cunningham's tape when he played at like college and regulation. And some people are better, some people are way worse.
When do we as a podcast get to consider ourselves NBA scouts as well? I think we might be at that level, and I think these NBA scouts are saying that that's malarkey.
We're there.
Well, we should just claim ourselves as NBA scouts and then just say, yep, our scouting report says Cade Cunningham is better.
Yes.
I'm just going to put in my Twitter bio, NBA analyst / scout.
Yes. For each season, the draft is approaching.
Yeah. And then NFL analyst.
You weren't NHL.
MLB. I'll just be them all.
Yeah. Alex, your percent chance, or what are you thinking about with this pick?
Well, I think that there is interest in Mobley, Green, and Cunningham from Troy Weaver himself.
Okay.
It's only going to be those 3. If it's anyone but Cade, it would be those other 2.
I hope so.
So no Suggs. But I put the percent chance at Cade Cunningham at 98.5%. I think
Wow.
that he's just trying to throw people off course at this point. I think it's Cade. He doesn't want to say it. I don't think Cade would have said all those great, nice things about Detroit and all that if he really thought he wasn't getting drafted by us.
I don't know about that. I think he would have said those still.
I don't know. I just
Why would he not
just
say?
In my gut feels like it's already a done deal and we just don't know about it. And maybe I'm just hoping that, but I think
You are. It's a mix of both.
Yeah.
So just to round out my percentages, the 90% chance, obviously, Cade at number 1. I put a 1% chance that we take Green or Mobley at number 1. So if we stay there, 1% chance we take one of those guys. And I'd say there's a 9% chance we trade the pick before we have the chance to take it. Now, some could argue those two last ones should be flipped because a trade might be more unlikely. It just seems like there's been a lot of offers reportedly thrown our way, which makes me think people could get panic on draft night and just throw the bag at us, and we potentially take it.
Weaver did say today in his press conference not to buy into all the trades you see and that most of them are just smoke and not real. So, for what it's
All right.
worth.
Well, speaking of Mr. Troy Weaver, Mr. GM Troy Weaver, I blocked out a part of this where if you'd like to give a quick, paragraph length statement to Mr. Weaver to try to say you should do this in hopes that potentially the new intern at the Pistons is playing this podcast out loud in the hallways in the office. And Troy Weaver hears it as he's walking to get his morning coffee.
Because
and he hears our
playing
voice
it out loud
on accident. His Bluetooth disconnected from his AirPods.
just blown out on his phone.
And it's coming out of his phone.
Yeah.
So would anyone like to start?
Mine's just
I'll
simple.
start.
If you got some nice
Do
long
it.
It's not
elaborate
long.
thing, mine's like a sentence.
It's a paragraph. I wrote, Dear Mr. Troy Weaver, please take Cade Cunningham with the number 1 overall pick. He's a 6'8" with a 7-foot wingspan, 220-pound distributor, floor general, scorer, bucket getter, disruptive defender, winner. He took on the Big 12's toughest competition alongside the cast of Rugrats, known as the Oklahoma State Sooners, and performed very well. I know it was kind of mean. Plus, he has said all the right things about being in the city, like Alex said, chip on his shoulder, ready to get to work. Hashtag Detroit up. I think that's our hashtag.
I'll go next. Dear Mr. Weaver, you personally have a chance to rebrand and rejuice
Restore.
Detroit basketball back to the way it should be in the early 2000s when we went back-to-back in the 80s and 90s. You have a chance to draft the next superstar, the number 1 overall pick by many, and a chance to get this ball rolling when you single-handedly are building this roster the way that you want it to be. Make the right choice, draft your superstar, and draft the next face of Detroit sports.
Yeah, you guys had really nice things to say.
Yeah, we set the bar high.
Yeah, mine was just a little shorter.
You're to the point.
Elite scorer, elite defender, wants to be here. It's a no-brainer. Draft Cade Cunningham. That's all I gotta say.
Aaron Henry.
Luka Garza, clear number 1 overall.
Yeah, imagine like Alex is just playing out loud and the Cade Cunningham part cuts out and then he just hears us, Aaron Henry, Luka Garza. Okay, I like that. That turned out good. Now, on the flip side of all this, devastation level if we don't pick Cade Cunningham. I'm sure it will change in the moment. Like, obviously, people overreact in the moment, but as we lead up to it with more of a cool head, where are you at devastation-wise if we do not pick Cade Cunningham number 1 overall?
I'll go first because it's going to be different than everyone else.
Ooh.
How do you know that?
I just have a
Reading our
feeling.
brains?
I have a feeling. We talk all the time. So,
We actually don't.
last year in the draft, Troy Weaver hit, you could say, on pretty much all the picks for now.
Yes.
He's done a great job getting rid of players that we didn't need. He's selling off contracts. He's bringing in guys that have played well. I will honestly not be upset because I'm giving Troy a fair shot at it. And if he really believes that Jalen Green is better than Cade, I knew you guys would be upset about it.
Who said we're upset?
All Evan's reaction says it all.
No.
No, I'm stretching, man.
We're straight to the...
If Jalen Green
straight to the vest.
is the guy for Troy Weaver, I'll give it a chance. And then if it doesn't work out, Cade's a superstar, Jalen Green stinks, yeah, then it'll be fire Troy Weaver. That'll be it. But I'm going to give him at least a chance.
That's boring. And well-reasoned,
Thank you.
but boring.
That's fine.
We're in the big boy takes business.
That's just how I honestly feel.
There's a real possibility I do not watch the Pistons in 2022 if we do not draft Cade Cunningham.
That seems just so extreme.
Just in 2022? Come on.
Evan's got more.
You guys would not take it to that level.
Unless we got like a massive haul.
Oh, I would.
Okay.
I verbally would never say the word Pistons ever again in my vocabulary.
You'd have to quit the podcast.
No.
Any topic that you talk about them, I wouldn't say a word about it.
Wow.
That's just extreme, guys.
That is extreme.
No, it's not. That is truthful.
Don't say you guys. Evan's more extreme.
If I asked you the same question when we had a live reaction of us getting the number one pick,
you were so giddy.
The same way.
Yeah, but Evan, I've been reasonable and I've thought about it, and I'm giving Troy a fair chance.
Steve Izzo?
Steve Eiserman. That's what I was thinking.
It's over being reasonable. You have it's on a silver platter.
Evan, what if Cade is a bust?
Instantly.
What if Cade busts?
I'm fine with that.
And what if Jalen Green is better? And
fine.
He's not.
And Troy decides, I heard Evan's stupid letter and I'm going to take Cade. But he really wanted Jalen Green and then Cade busts.
Evan's letter wasn't stupid. That is messed up.
A letter was from the heart, man.
Alex, you understand that you can take Cade. He stinks. Jalen's good. You keep your job.
I just don't think you guys can just turn your back on the franchise entirely if we don't draft Cade.
I will.
I know Evan's serious.
I said on the lottery show, I said if we don't draft Cade Cunningham, I'm burning all my stuff. Add that to the list.
No, Alex said that as well. Alex
at the time, and then I thought about it.
Tape doesn't lie.
No, I'm actually now way more nervous for the draft just because of how Evan would react if you don't get Cade. It could ruin this podcast as we know it.
It's going to be awkward the next couple of shows for sure.
Wow. I don't even want to be here for the next show if next show is not Cade Cunningham.
It's going to be Alex going, Jalen Green's pretty good. Evan and I going, boo.
It'll be a solo podcast. We're back to me doing
we'll
a solo
show up.
podcast.
We'll clock in for work.
Oh, I'll clock in. I just won't say one word about him.
I mean, knowing me, I'll probably go do a deep dive on Jalen Green or Mobley and convince myself like they're good. But
I know you would do that.
No,
Evan would be wearing a Bucks jersey and be done.
He does have a team. He has a good team he can go to.
That just would be a cop.
It'd be good to have some, national perspective on this show.
Wow.
I think mainly, like what I'm saying though, is if they stay at one and take Green or Mobley, I'll be most disappointed. If they get a decent haul for the pick that I can justify, I'll be okay with it. Which transitions into our next topic is all the rumors, all the hullabaloo on the interwebs about who has been offered, and all this stuff, dude. It just catches so much steam. Like you hear, rumor has it, and then it goes. People just turn that into reportedly offered. Like those are different things. A rumor, and then reportedly offered, tagging the journalist who's reportedly offering it is like it just escalates so fast. But I think the main one that all probably caught our attention was the Oklahoma City Thunder, who have a boatload of picks that we talked about, that Evan has been intrigued by the amount of picks they have. They decided, reportedly offered, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, we'll refer to him as SGA, as people do in the league, and the number 6 pick to us for the number 1 pick, and we declined it. This is Pro City Hoops tweeted it. They said via Matt Babcock, who's like a 12,000 follower reporter.
Verified.
I don't know about you guys. Whenever I see someone has like, I base news off of follower counts for those kind of guys. Like if you have over 10K, you're probably just not lying. So I kind of go off of that. So it seems it could be legit. I feel like, not to be a hypocrite, I feel like I know where Alex is going to go with this one.
No, you don't.
People were split on it. I'd like to see what you guys think about this trade. And if you would have done it. And if you think it's real.
Well, we have discussed this trade in our many trade hypotheticals. And I said at that time that I would consider it and that I do like SGA as a player quite a bit. And I could see and get behind accepting that trade. But I'm also totally fine with rejecting the trade. I'm not sitting here reading that tweet thinking, oh my God, we needed him. I just think, Troy doesn't want him. And he thinks hopefully Cade Cunningham is much better. Then that's fine. Then I'm okay.
GM cap on Alex. Would you do it?
I would have to go through a full scouting process. I'd have to know exactly who's going to be there at 6.
Would you do it? Oh, you want to play a who's at 6 game? Let's play that game. Scotty Barnes is at 6.
Whoa.
He might not be there.
I don't see him getting to 6.
Well, guys, it's a hypothetical. Work with me here.
Okay.
My bad.
No, you're
Okay,
good.
he's there at 6.
Scotty Barnes is at 6.
I would probably do it.
Kuminga's at 6.
No.
Because think about it. We could always take Cade and then make this trade on draft night and say you get the rights to him, we get the rights to your pick and
Right.
SGA.
Agreed.
So
Kuminga? No. No
no.
projects for me.
Davion Mitchell is at 6.
I like Davion Mitchell a lot.
So you're yes on one, no on the other.
That would go
David
down
Mitchell's
to 1.
falling a little bit in the draft from
He is going to
recently.
fall. He is going to fall.
He's down into like the 11, 12, 13, that range a little bit more, but still solid.
I think I would probably pass.
James Bouknight.
No.
Bouknight, I guess.
No.
Anyone else? That
I think it's Scotty Barnes is definitely.
you do know Scotty Barnes cannot shoot, correct?
Yeah, he's a good player though.
Okay.
And he's
You can always teach shooting. It's kind of
I might be scarred by Ben
Simmons.
Simmons.
Can't. I mean, Markelle Fultz figured it out.
Come see, come saw a little bit.
I probably would do it with Scotty Barnes because SGA is a very good, like high. It could be a high level all star in the NBA. I think that would work. And I don't know anything about Cade in his NBA yet, so
Do you
you
think?
could take the proven prospect.
Do you think Cade Cunningham
higher ceiling than SGA for sure?
higher ceiling?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That answered my question.
Jason Tatum level ceiling for Cade Cunningham,
Okay.
maybe higher.
Evan, would you take the trade?
That personally trade, no, I would not take it. I
needs
think
more
it's
picks.
a low ball offer from Oklahoma City. I mean, we're only flip flopping, and we are getting a superstar. Don't get me wrong, but you also look at all the draft picks Oklahoma City has and be like, hey,
Yeah.
giving us 2 more first round picks is not going to hurt you, and I think we deserve it because we have what you want.
And even
The highest prize possession of the last 2 years.
and even if we have to add a player on the end of it or a
You
couple
can take
more
any
picks,
expiring old guy from us. Doesn't bother me.
Yeah, I get that argument, Evan. I do. So I did SGA's numbers. He's played 3 years in this league. He's 23 years old. He's very good. He's a very good player,
He's really
objectively.
Scoring's
Now,
going up.
I would say the I guess the argument for SGA taking it was like if you want to win sooner than later, but then your window becomes tighter.
Yeah.
So SGA's year one, because if you think about it, Cade could be on the trajectory of SGA. Maybe he could get better faster because he's going to have because like SGA in Oklahoma City. Well, he was on the Clippers first, and then Oklahoma City, and like he wasn't the go-to guy really until probably this like last year 3 when Chris Paul finally left and all that. It was his team. His numbers were 11 points, 3 assists, 3 rebounds. And then year 2 was 19 points, 3 assists, 6 rebounds. And then this last year, 24 points a game, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, 5 rebounds. So very good player, 24 points a game. Cade can definitely get there at some point, but like we can't be surprised if Cade has like a 12 points per game, 15 points per game, 5 and 5 first year. You know, like he's not going to probably be averaging 20 points a game first year in the NBA. He could.
I think there's a chance.
Could. There's still Jeremy Grant on our team.
I'd put it at
But here's
50-50.
here's the real rub. Here's the reason why we're turning this down, or I'm turning this down, is because SGA is on the last year of his contract, and he's going to cost $30 million per year
A
for
max,
like
right?
5 years. He's going to need a max.
That does hurt. But we're going to
And-
be giving that to Cade in a couple of years anyways.
Well, Cade's going to be like 4 years, 40 million-ish. He's going to be 10 million a year because the contracts for the first pick are like outrageous now. Like Anthony Edwards made 4 years, $44 million.
That's
So
a nice payout.
You're saving 20 million for a guy that you think can get to that level on that same timeline, if not faster than that timeline. And that's why I think you just, like Evan said, unless you get more, you just sit on it. Do I love SGA? Yes. Do I think you could get a good player at the 6th pick? Yes. But then it comes dicey, like Alex said. So I think that's ultimately why you sit on it. And then we get further clarification in a article from Jake Fisher. He wrote, since drawing the top selection in June, Detroit has consistently messaged to rival teams, which is weird. He said rival, like not everyone's our rival. We'll be talking to Cleveland. It would need a first
Probably.
in this year's draft, future draft ammo, and an established young star. So if we look at those 3 boxes, SGA is the young star, first in this year's draft. They don't have that future draft ammo that Evan referred to and that Troy Weaver wants.
Hope you guys are excited for Darius Garland. Some first-round picks and, the ammo.
Don't think that's the young star that he's thinking about.
Well, wouldn't be surprised.
I would say.
Could see some fireworks.
I see here I wrote anything about other hypothetical trades or free agents. I don't know if you guys have any for that. I realize now, like, maybe it's easier to do free agency stuff after the draft because there's too many moving parts. Like, we don't really know what free
Gotta
agents...
know who's on the team.
Yeah, like, we don't know what free agents we might need until after the draft.
Yeah.
Does that seem fair?
Yeah, no free agent talk, I think, this week, unless Evan's got
The only free agents that I would say is based off of what we have currently, what we're going to draft Cade Cunningham would be like a post player. And I couldn't tell you any of the post players available. Everybody that I'm seeing, like at least in the top 10, is like guards.
Yeah.
And everybody is supposedly going to the Lakers. I don't know where they're going to get all this money, but every top free agent's like, yep, he's going to go to the Lakers. And it's like,
Lakers,
okay.
Heat, Clippers, everyone's going there. Those three teams.
Yeah. So
I can't blame them. Good cities. Okay, so we're not going to do a full mock draft like we did for the Lions because it's just it doesn't feel the same. And we found out the Lions one was tough. Deep in that draft, we were just, what are we doing?
We can't do that again.
I just want to, if you look at a big board, you kind of see our second round picks, 37, 42, 52. Now is your chance to let the people know what kind of guys you like in that range. And also, if you thought of any trade packages maybe you'd like to put together to move up to go target a guy, let's say like the late first round. GM caps.
Sure, I'll go first. And I did the second round probables. And once scrolling through the mock drafts, doing my research, there's a bunch of mock drafts, and I don't think I found one that was even somewhat close to each other. I watched the mock draft special on ESPN. What was that, Saturday?
It was either Sunday or Monday.
Yeah, and they had so many different guys on there, and like I looked up one mock draft, and like half of them weren't even on ESPN's mock draft. So there's some second round probables that I wrote down. I don't know if they're even going to be in the second round available or whatnot. Just hypothetical in the range around 37, 42. My number one target I would get is Corey Kispert. And people are going to say,
I don't think he's fallen into the second.
Now, I'm with you, but I'm pretty sure I saw a couple mock drafts where he does fall to the second round. Now, he still has to get to 37 to us. It's highly unlikely, but I think it's to be a prized possession at 37 or trade all your second round picks and move up late into the first round.
Okay, I can see that.
Where you're giving a team three second round picks. I know that 52 is kind of towards the middle end. Value's a little bit low, but you're giving 3 picks for one late in the second round. Might be like a playoff team that doesn't have cap that needs to get out of that spot. So Corey Kispert would be mine. He can shoot, dynamic. It's all about spacing the floor, which I kind of like. And then the rest of the guys that I have on here, I couldn't really find like a decent post player that I like. So I kind of went out there and said bucket getters who can guard multiple positions and who can score at will in the college game. Should translate to the NBA. I wrote Ayo Dosunmu, Dwayne Washington Jr., Greg Brown from Texas, and Aaron Wiggins from Maryland. Those are all like kind of guards, kind of 6'6" range. And then I also wrote down Jeremiah Robinson Earl, dynamic guy, plays multiple positions. He's a little undersized for power forward. He's kind of more like a Sadiq Bey. I don't think he can shoot as well, but you're getting the same talent from the Villanova range, that cloth of well-rounded basketball IQ prospect.
The cloth.
So those are some guys I find like in the second round, the hidden gems.
I like it.
I take that back. I also wrote down Aaron Henry just because he Michigan State fan favorite, whatever you want to say, and he can guard multiple positions.
Fair. As you should include him on.
I had 3 guys that I would say.
Okay.
Joe Wieskamp from Iowa. We need shooting, 3-point shooter. He's good size, so I think he would fit well in
Good
Detroit.
size.
I put Aaron Henry because, we have to talk about him. He is an NBA athlete. He just can't shoot really yet, but I think he could develop that. So I think he could be valuable on defense as well. And then the Western Kentucky center, Charles Bassey.
Okay.
He's almost 7 foot.
Teach me about him.
Ginormous wingspan. He played really well against Power 5 opponents this year, and people were talking about him. I see he's got a Clint Capella comparison, and I think that'd be nice in Detroit.
Uh-oh.
And then the only other thing I would do is what Evan said. I would trade a couple second-round picks to try to get into the late first if Corey Kispert was dropping and to take him in the first. I also really like him because he can shoot and space the floor. I think he would fit well in Detroit as well.
Shoot well. I actually tried to do one mock draft. I used like fanspo.com, it was called. Wasn't the best mock draft. I couldn't trade, which I didn't really want to. I just wanted to see who would be there in these mock drafts. And I came away with the third. I didn't do the 52nd. I actually had like a brain fart. I didn't even realize we had the 52nd pick until today, and I added it to the show sheet. I thought we had 37 and 42. Yeah, hand up. So I took Brandon Boston from Kentucky, or BJ Boston, nickname, is like he was a high school recruit athlete and just kind of Kentucky. So there's going to be some good players from Kentucky that come out of this draft that are kind of fall because of how bad their season was. It's like they have talent. They just didn't put it together. COVID, whatever. He was like a top 5 recruit in the country, I think. And he's like 6'7" shooting guard. I like the length. Troy Weaver likes the wingspan. I'm trying to think like our GM. And then at 42nd, Evan, you mentioned him, Greg Brown. Talk about a freak athlete, power forward. We kind of need size, lanky. If you ever watch, he probably is the best high school highlight tape in the country outside of Zion, like just throwing down massive dunks over people. And he's just crazy athletic. And I think with Coach Casey, maybe a little John Beeline sprinkling development, we can have this guy working on post moves and getting better. Besides that, in the range that I also like, I like Joe Wieskamp, like Alex said. If we want to go a little bit older, which I know is kind of a no-no in today's society with draft, like people just love projects. Herb Jones from Alabama, we saw them a lot in the tournament. He's a long, lanky kind of wing player who can shoot a little bit, pass, kind of did it all for them. I like him. And the guy that we've been linked to that I don't know if he'll drop anymore because he's getting steam is Nashawn Highland from VCU. Watched a little bit of him like in conference tourney play. He's pretty good. I mean, there's always a guy from a mid-major conference that kind of surprises you a little bit, and I think he could be one. Now, the guy that I absolutely cannot have us draft in this range. Are you guys ready? Cannot have Matthew Hurt drafted in this range. I will puke.
Oh.
I think he stinks.
I think he's good. Could be good.
Which is crazy that Alex is saying that considering he watched a real live game of him against MSU, and he stinks.
He can get hot from 3, shoot it. It's a big guy.
His release is bad. He just doesn't have good mechanics.
Quick, but I don't know.
He's like everything Corey. He's like everything. Corey Kispert is everything Matthew Hurt aspires to be, and he's just not.
He could carve a role in the NBA. Sometime.
Nope. Not on my team.
Thomas Kithier strapped him. There's no way he makes it in the NBA.
We'll have to rewatch the tape. The way you said that, I agree. And I'm also not like him at all. I do not want to stay
I don't like his personality.
Anywhere near my team. Now, what I really want to do, I like Greg Brown. If he's there, I'm cool staying. But I would like to package some of those picks and move up. And I was thinking like, okay, last year, what did we do? Well, last year was different because like we had Christian Wood that we kind of hung out there. And that's how we got Isaiah Stewart back in that pick. And then what we did for the 19th pick was a 3-way trade. We got rid of Luke Kennard, just him in a 3-way, and got back the 19th pick for Sadiq Bey, which seems awesome now, like 19 for Sadiq Bey. So I'm looking at our roster, right? I'm like, all right, Sekou Doumbouya. I like you. I have hopes for you. I know this is sacrilegious because in our group chat, I said that I would be a Sekou guy no matter what because I wanted to turn around. I'm cool if we trade him. And he's not a Troy Weaver guy. He's like one of the few. He's like the only Troy Weaver guy on the roster, non-Troy Weaver guy left on the roster. What if we package him 37th and 42nd pick? I'm just thinking out loud. I wonder what that could get us. Could that get us into the back half of the first round? It's not going to get us in the lottery because he's not good enough for that. He's like because Luke Kennard was 15 points per game. But I have a guy that if you really want a guy, if you want Corey Kispert at like 18, Josh Jackson in a pick.
I don't think he is going to garner enough value.
Josh Jackson had 14 points a game. He's 24 years old. We revitalized his career. He was an alpha dog on this team. I'm cool with keeping Josh Jackson as a bench threat, but I'm also like, we put Josh with a 37th and 42nd pick. And how high can we go?
I think teams are going to see that. I believe he will be a free agent after next year, and they don't need to get rid of a draft pick for Josh Jackson.
And that's a good counterpoint. Just kind of talking out loud here.
Yeah. So I'm going to say that won't happen. He's not enough. I think Plumlee, Dumbuya, and a couple seconds is.
But the thing about Plumlee that got me thinking when Evan was talking is like there's not enough prospects in this draft to refill that position, because then you're just banking on 19-year-old Isaiah Stewart carrying the load, which I'm not ready to do. I'm not ready to let Isaiah Stewart carry.
JaVale McGee type of player.
I'd rather keep triple-double god Mason Plumlee.
Maybe.
That's a later date.
I found the tweet that you said didn't exist.
No, it was a DM.
Yeah, it's a DM, and the guy sent his tweet.
Oh.
And it's right here.
About Luka Garza.
Yeah. And you tell me if this doesn't say that he wants to take Luka Garza number 1.
Okay. But we didn't have the first pick at this point. So.
Hashtag Detroit up is how this tweet starts.
Using the hashtag.
Everybody is saying draft Cunningham with the number 1 pick, but I like Luka Garza from Iowa. He averaged 24 points per game, shot 55% from the field and 44% from 3. Not many 7-1 centers you heard of doing that in Big Ten.
It is good stats, but it's just.
So he did say that he would want Luka Garza number 1. So there's someone out there.
He listens to the show. He interacted with us. I will not trash him.
I'm not trashing him.
I'd love to have him on.
You told me that he didn't say that, so I put it out there.
All right. Anyways, full circle here. Grant, you want to make this package. You want to move up. Who do you want? I got a guy for Evan. I think Alex will like him. Evan said, you want bucket getters? I got a bucket getter for you. Cam Thomas from LSU. I don't know how much we've all collectively watched him. I mainly watched his Alabama game. I watched him against Michigan. This was the guy who came out and made the first 8 points, making ridiculous fadeaway shots. This guy knows how to get buckets. He averaged over 20 points a game as a freshman. He was a one-and-done blue chip prospect. Like, I don't know how he'll work on a team. Because at LSU, they just play free-for-all ball. Like, you can be selfish. I don't know how that fits into the NBA. But if you need a guy that can create his own shot, which is what the NBA is all about, this is your guy. Cam Thomas going in like the 20s in most mocks I'm looking at. If we can get up to get Cam Thomas, then hold on to the 42nd pick and take Greg Brown and Cade Cunningham, bravo. I'm ready to roll. Because he's another shooting guard for some depth. I think it'd be perfect.
Cam's a hooper.
Yes.
I think he could be a solid NBA player. And I agree with everything you said. I just don't know how Detroit's really going to get back into the first.
Hard to trade up.
That's the problem.
Everyone talks about how deep and good this class is. Maybe we just hang around.
I hope Cam Thomas just falls to the second. Any
last points? I do want to touch briefly on the Michigan and Michigan State players. You guys teased a little bit with Aaron Henry, but since we are Shot Michigan Sports, we do have 3 total players I could see being drafted in this draft from the school. So, So
livers.
I'll speak for the Michigan guys. You can chime in too. Obviously, you guys know just as much as I do about them. Franz Wagner, the fit that I like if he were to go to the Warriors, probably at 14 or even 7. 7 would be a little early, what I'm seeing. But if you like a guy, you take him there. He would fit in well there. Kind of like that Andrew Wiggins replacement one day. Maybe they can move off Andrew Wiggins and he can be your lanky defender and give you a little bit of offense. He'd have Draymond to mentor him. He'd have Wiggins to mentor him. He'd even fill in the Oubre role when he probably gets dealt. Or Memphis. Memphis just moved into the top 10. People hopefully don't forget that. People realize that. He seems like a Memphis gritty guy, like not flashy, a Kyle Anderson-esque player. Kind of moves at his own pace. I like that for him. I don't know if he'll be there at 10. Now, who I hate for him, career enders probably. Orlando, Sacramento, and OKC. Those are just like, I guess
Sacramento's where you
I guess die. I'll see you when I see you, Franz. Like I would hate that for him because those teams are just they just seem to always perennially be not good in my lifetime. OKC was all right, but now they're a dumpster fire. For livers, I would say he's late in this draft, but there's a round of pick I saw mock near the Celtics. I think the Celtics would be a good organization to kind of grow in. You can learn under Tatum and Brown and kind of get a feel for how the small forward position, shooting guard position is played in the NBA. And then I'll dive in lastly on Aaron Henry. I'm going to say this. I don't think it might surprise you guys. If he's our 52nd pick, I won't mind it. I'm not going to go crazy. I'm not going to take my shirt off. I just think he could be an energetic defensive bench specialist. I'm just thinking about sometimes when I'd play the 2K video game and you have a guy comes off the bench and gets steals for you and kind of runs the break with you. That could be him. I could see him throwing down a transition dunk after a steal, like in the third quarter of a game this season. I'd take him and then just see what, like, again, we're working on our player development every day. Maybe he develops more of a jump shot. What do you guys see for fits wise? Like good fits, bad fits, where you think they'll go?
I think just one thing on Wagner I want to say before Evan goes is just I don't feel as good about his NBA prospect, as an NBA prospect as other people. I just worry to see like how his game really will translate. He's not a super athlete. He's not really fast. He's not going to run the floor that well. So it just kind of makes me a little nervous of how he's going to get to the NBA. But he is a good shooter and he's a good defender, so he'll probably be fine. But I feel like he might be going a little higher than I would place him. But that's all I'll say about that. Evan, you can go ahead.
As we are now draft scouts and draft analysts,
Yes.
I think Wagner's going that high solely based on his size and his potential. He's still kind of young, and the word potential, like take a shot during the NBA draft every time you hear potential, and you'll be jumped probably by like the 8th pick. So that's probably why he's going that high. I agree with you. If he goes to Sacramento, his career is going to die fast. I mean, he's a guy like all these prospects, not really, they scored in college level, but like going to the NBA, it's a little bit different trying to score at will. So you kind of need these guys to go to almost like a playoff team. Hard to say that, but you want like a playoff team where they get brought underneath people's wings, how to do it the right way, the correct way, where it's not kind of like a sloppy organization. And I think that's where some guys struggle. It's a lot like the NFL where you go to like the right situation at the right time and you'll see their careers take off in a better situation. I like Wagner, like you said, at the Warriors. I think that'd be a great fit. Get rid of Wiggins' contract. And he can slide in right there. I think Kelly Oubre is potentially a free agent, so potentially he could get more playing time than some people would say. Aaron Henry's in like the 40-50 range. I don't know too many people there, but I think it would be all right. Don't go to Sacramento. And then Livers, obviously, if he's in the 60s, 70s, now you're getting second round playoff teams. And I think if you find any of those playoff teams this year or they're around the bubble, I think it would be a good fit for him. That way you're not going to like a worse team and you're expected to play right away. Personally speaking, I don't think Livers or Henry would succeed greatly on the Pistons in like the first couple of years. You'd have to give them like 2 or 3 years until you actually see their success on the court.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure.
I'm going to make a bold prediction on Livers. I think based on how I see the picks lining up at the end of the second, I think Livers ends up on the Pacers. Just feels like that's where he's going. They have pick 54 and 60. I think he ends up in one of those picks. That's just my bold prediction for the draft.
And honestly, like I wouldn't stun me if both those guys just had like role player bench roles in this league. Like I think with Livers, like his injuries derailed him like 2 years of college, and he was a 60, 40, 90 guy, shooting wise, so he can fill it up. And he's tall enough that he can be serviceable on defense. I wouldn't be surprised one day like he's makes his way to a good team and is just playing a good like off the bench role, for a team in the playoffs one day. Same kind of for Aaron Henry. He could be like your defensive stopper if you ever needed him in situations. There's places for those, like a PJ Tucker. I know he's supposed to be a 3-point guy, but he can't shoot that well anymore. And then you saw what role he played in the NBA Finals, like just out there, just playing physical defense.
I think both of them can be solid role players on championship level teams.
Yeah. So shout out our college guys that are about to get drafted. Hopefully they find the best situations possible.
At least 2 of them are getting drafted.
Yeah.
Livers, maybe.
And now, without further ado, we'll tee up what you're about to listen to is our interview with PFF Director of Content, Austin Gayle. We talked a lot of stuff here, and his background, PFF's background, and also a lot of Lions talk. So buckle up from a national perspective, how people out there view the Lions. So enjoy that. All right, so join us now for today's show is Austin Gayle. He is Pro Football Focuses, or better known as PFF, Director of Content, and the host on 2-for-1 Drafts Podcast. Thanks for joining us today, Austin.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
And we're getting to see his ring light experience for the first time in person. Never seen one of those, really.
The ring light was a necessary purchase in quarantine when everything was going on Zoom and all that stuff. So I have it now. It's here in the studio apartment, and we're benefiting. Look a lot better in the ring light, for sure.
Absolutely. Look good, feel good, podcast good, I guess.
Absolutely.
Our first question for you today, some background, just so we're all familiar with each other, us and the listeners as well. What is a brief description of Pro Football Focus and how it operates?
Yeah, so Pro Football Focus, or PFF, was originally founded by a guy in the UK. His name is Neil Hornsby, and he was, I think it was early 2000s. He kind of said, you know what, like there's just not enough being looked at in football to properly evaluate players. You know, I think a lot of it back then was tackles, touchdowns, receptions, yardage. I mean, we were starting to flirt with passer rating, but he felt that there was more opportunity to collect and track and analyze advanced statistics in football, things like missed tackles, forced missed tackles, yards after contact, drops. I mean, drops weren't even a thing 15, 20 years ago. And in addition to that, he wanted to legit grade players, evaluate on-field performance, and came up with a system to grade every single player and every single play in the NFL from a scale of -2 to +2 at 0.5 increments, -2 being the worst play you've ever seen, +2 being the best, and then 0 being expectation, kind of what's expected of a player of an NFL caliber, a league average player on that play. And with that, then started to add kind of more mathematics, people with mathematical backgrounds to take those raw scores and turn those into 0 to 100 grades. And originally it was meant to just really be a B2B, focus, or business to business focus, where, hey, we're collecting all this data, we're collecting all these grades, and we feel like they're pretty sweet. Let's sell them to NFL teams. It was actually the Giants right before they won their first Super Bowl with Eli Manning that not bought into PFF, but purchased or worked with PFF data in that and started to leverage that with some of the decisions they were making with, trading and cutting and signing and starting players. And I think that with that Super Bowl came a lot of coverage and a spike in obviously NFL teams being interested. And then eventually Chris Collinsworth, who felt he could leverage the data a lot more in his broadcasting job and all that type of stuff. And his big push was, let's take these grades that are -2 to +2 that no one understands, and let's fit them to a 0 to 100 scale that everyone in the United States understands, obviously letter grade type of stuff. And start to really prioritize a consumer or content focused product where that's the same data and grades that we're selling to NFL teams. Let's do it and sell it to people who play fantasy football, who bet on the NFL, who are fans, etc. And that really dominoed very quickly. I think that was in 2016 where he really put a lot of push into content and the kind of consumer product offering at PFF. And then he said, hey, let's do this for college too. How hard would it be to do it for all 130 FBS teams? Let's do it for the CFL, XFL, AAF, all that stuff that's come up. And now it's really turned into this juggernaut where PFF is collecting, analyzing exclusive data and grades that are more stable year over year in the NFL and a lot of other metrics, allowing for NFL teams and college football teams. We currently work with all 32 teams, 100 college football teams, and obviously, a healthy amount of subscribers as well, offering exclusive data that, takes the game forward. And I think the future for PFF and the real priority is to continue to analyze football. We're also adding 2 new sports in the near term, in rugby and soccer. We're probably going to prioritize other sports beyond that as well. And it's really let's collect, analyze, and create really unique PFF exclusive data that is more stable year over year than the other data that you can collect in those sports, to allow for not just teams and businesses to make decisions off that data, but also consumers who are obviously doing a lot of action or making a lot of decisions in football with betting and fantasy football, and also also being entertained fans. That was long-winded and probably too businessy for what you're looking for, but that's what I've got to start.
No, I like it. I mean, it's a super fascinating company, at least in my opinion, because there was that hole in the market for almost an analytical authority in the game on how we're going to view players in that manner. And it's just so easy there's a lot of background work that goes into it, it sounds like, but it's nice having that grade. I can't tell you how many times and just arguments amongst ourselves where I'll just cite a player's PFF grade and kind of use it as the Bible and hope they don't challenge me on it and ask me all the ways that it gets formulated. But I'm just going to tell you this number, good or bad, and kind of use that as my argument for it. More shifted towards you personally. So we have the idea of the company as a whole. What's your main role at the company?
Yeah, I'm the director of content here at PFF. I work under George Chipuri, our chief experience officer, to manage our content team. So obviously, there's this side of PFF that prioritizes, selling, the PFF exclusive data to NFL teams, to college football teams. We also work with a ton of agencies because they're making more business-to-business decisions. They're making decisions to go for it on fourth down, to sign players, to trade players, to draft players. Whereas I work on the content side, where our goal is obviously our primary goal is to encourage people to engage with and subscribe to PFF. And while our market identifier is obviously this advanced stats and these grades that we can offer to all football fan types, whether you're a fantasy football player or better, or even just a fan, and just enjoy going to the games and watching the games, we want to leverage that market identifier to engage all football fans. And a lot of that is obviously creating really exciting and engaging content in article, website, podcast, and video form, and managing people like Mike and others to kind of get to that level to where we're competing with and creating as good of content as an ESPN, an NFL Network, Bleacher Report, The Athletic, et cetera, these competitors where we feel we can do content better than they can. And it's all about kind of setting expectations and managing people to a point where we can compete with that. And obviously, resources are an interesting piece of that. PFF is still largely a startup. I mean, this past year, full transparency, we had 28 full-time people working on the content side at PFF, including myself. And if you're going to compete with ESPN with 28 dogs, it's not going to be that easy. And I think as we get better and add more talent, we're doing a lot of hiring right now at PFF to add to that content vertical as we see subscription revenue and other revenue streams on the consumer side improve. You don't want to see this team when we have as many people as ESPN has in NFL media. And then as we add other sports as well, that obviously adds to where we could go. So in a nutshell, it's really just trying to help PFF create the best content possible in those four major kind of mediums of podcast, video, article, and social content. That's where my mind's at every day.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's a good background to kind of set the tone here for the rest of the interview, so people have a good idea of where you're coming from with your analysis. I guess the easiest way, I think, to transition here a little bit into Lions-specific talk is the draft. Like you said, PFF really branched out into the college space, and I've even seen you've written like a fair share of draft articles. We did some digging in a good way on your Twitter account to try to find some Lions tweets you've had in the past, and I found one where you said your favorite 2021 NFL draft classes being the Chargers, the Bears, the Browns, and the Lions. So naturally, we'd like to know, what about that Lions 2021 draft class did you like the most?
Yeah, I think a lot of that, honestly, is, PFF, I think they did such a good job, in not necessarily prioritizing, positional need in a lot of ways. I think when you think about, what they did with the Penei Sewell pick, I think a lot of people are like, man, receiver is a disaster. They couldn't receive this, and Tyrell Williams, this is not going to be a good receiving core for Jared Goff. It's like, dude, this team's not going to be good next year. I think you have to have some self-awareness. We talk a lot about that on the podcast we have. It's like, have some awareness as a team in that you don't need to trade. The Detroit Lions are one of the last teams in the NFL draft have to to think about trading up and moving on from future resources to add their guy. I think that's where I kind of really like what they did there. I also really like the Lee McNeil pick. I think he's a guy that came on the 2-4 Draft podcast, a former linebacker, running back from North Carolina that went to NC State, had offers from blue blood programs like Alabama and others, but wanted to stay there. And it's probably one of the better nose tackle prospects in this class. They were able to get it at a bargain, in my opinion. I think Levi Onwuzurike has very high upside. Still not what anyone wants him to be yet. I think that's kind of been evident with what he was at Washington. But a guy that I think if you take, he's a guy that is in the best shape of his life. He was another guy I talked to on the podcast that did not play in 2020, obviously opted out of the 2020 season with Washington, but he said he's got a completely different frame, and like what he's going to be is going to be completely different than what he was at Washington in 2019. And when you look at a draft class, you really do think about your first 3 picks or your top 100 picks being those kind of high impact, high value opportunities for you to really strike gold. I think if you are banking on 5th, 6th, 7th round picks being those banner pieces in your draft class, it's very rare statistically for those people to kind of perform above expectation. But investing in the trenches, prioritizing high-end talent, not forcing positional need is exactly how the Detroit Lions needed to approach this 2021 draft, because they're going to be competing for the number 1 overall pick this upcoming season. They're going to be looking at Spencer Rattler, Sam Howell, potentially, if they don't like those quarterbacks or they draft a little bit later, you're looking at a Kayvon Thibodeau, Derek Stingley. I think they don't have the luxury of kind of finding that final piece to this team or the final pieces to this team. They're very much, especially with the coaching changes and those things, in a little bit of a rebuild, a 1, 2, 3 year rebuild. Ideally, hopefully, I think the next step for them is finding that quarterback and being in a position to take one of these quarterbacks in a quarterback class where maybe it won't be as good as 2021. Obviously, with Trevor Lawrence and kind of dominating the conversation there, Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, Trey Lance, Mac Jones, 5 first-round quarterbacks. I still think there is a lot of talent in this class. Spencer Rattler, Sam Howell, I think are the 2 favorites to go number 1 overall. Likely will be top 3, top 5 picks when it's all said and done. But there's other quarterbacks too. Carson Strong of Nevada, Malik Willis of Liberty, Matt Corral of Ole Miss is drawing some buzz. I think that's where my mindset goes. But if they don't get QB, I'm a huge fan of the 2023 class too, with DJ Uiagalelei of Clemson kind of highlighting that class. So I think honestly, you think about this Detroit Lions team, you almost want to hone in on him before you start to think about that second or third tier quarterback in 2022.
So with that, I was just going to ask for 2022 draft prospects, who do you think is the best quarterback in your opinion?
I think it is Spencer Rattler. I think from a tools perspective and a talent perspective, he is going to be the quarterback. The quarterback. I think there are other quarterbacks that could make some jumps similar to what we saw with Zach Wilson. Obviously had a monster jump with the monster year at BYU. Joe Burrow had that freaking monster year for LSU in the year prior. You could see some quarterbacks jump like that. I think Keaton Slovis of USC, Carson Strong, Nevada, Malik Willis, Liberty. These are guys that are not being talked about as number 1, number 2 overall picks, but in a one really exciting year and with some buzz and with the physical tools a lot of those guys have, you could see them take that step. I think some people mentioned Brock Purdy in that same regard. I don't think he has the tools or the physical talents to take that leap, but still, I think it's very difficult predicting quarterback classes the year before their final season because it is a very developmental focused position where you kind of need to see in their ideal situation at their peak development in college with their ideally best supporting cast, can they get it done? And that's what the interesting conversation is going to be around Sam Howell this year. There's a very good chance Sam Howell is not as good this year as he was last year. We're losing De'Ami Brown, Daz Newsome, Javonte Williams, Michael Carter. Yes, Mac Brown's still there. He's another guy I talked to recently that has a lot of faith in Sam Howell being ACC title competitive this year. It's easier said than done when you lose that much talent. And I think UNC has a lot of questions to answer at skill positions specifically before they're going to see Sam Howell really have success. Because even though it is a quarterback-driven league across the board, NFL and college football, skill players still mean a lot, especially with how much they relied on yards after contact from Williams and Carter, yards after the catch from Newsome. This team is going to need to show up. They're going to need some talent from those guys that didn't necessarily participate last year in their run they had to show up this year.
Evan, you got a burning question you want to get off your chest?
Yeah, sure. I know you're on the content side of PFF, but do you anyway know how difficult it is rating draft prospects? And if so, what position is probably the hardest to grade overall?
Yeah, so Mike and I work really closely to put together the draft guide content for PFF. He is kind of the lead draft analyst at PFF who has final say on how this goes, but we do have a lot of conversation about where we're ranking players and where we want to position players on the draft board and so forth. I do think very difficult positions to grade, obviously quarterback, because so much of it is dependent, in my opinion, of mental toughness, leadership qualities, what you're doing on and off the field. It's why Jamarcus Russell can be the number 1 overall pick. In previous years, I'm losing Ryan Leaf. There's work ethic issues that, as an outside party, as me or Mike, it's very difficult to kind of get on board with that. And while we are prioritizing more interviews in our content to get a sense of what these players are, we really don't know a player's work ethic until you get into the nitty gritty or have sources and coaching staffs and stuff like that to really understand where this player's going to go. So I do think quarterback is obviously very difficult. It's one of and there's a reason there's only a handful of good ones in the NFL, and there's a reason it's one of the highest kind of bust rate positions at the top of the NFL draft. I think another position is, or positions are, specifically off-ball coverage players. When you're looking at linebacker, safety, just because you're given such few opportunities when you're targeted in college, that it's sometimes very difficult to go back and scout those positions because it's so scheme dependent too, like how this player was leveraged, how he was utilized, the level of competition he's going against. I think I'll struggle often with linebackers and safeties, and they're used in a specific role or not given a ton of opportunities, not given a ton of targets and coverage, going to be used completely different in the NFL. It can be very difficult with that. But I do think the easier positions, I know you didn't ask, but I do think the easier positions are the ones that do get close to the ball. and where there's more binary wins and losses. D-line, O-line. PFF, some of the most stable data PFF collects is offensive line and defensive line data, both at the college and NFL level, because wins and losses are so much more clear cut there. And at linebacker or at safety, it's difficult to assign a win and a loss a lot of the time because you're not always involved in the play. You don't know if it was a scheme miss or necessarily a player miss and that stuff. So I do think safety and linebacker would be the positions I highlight first as some of the harder ones to scout.
So my next one, not to throw you into the show's personal fire here, but we actually had a debate on this show probably 2 or so weeks ago. We've been doing our top 25 players of the Lions, kind of counting down 5 players at a time until we reach 1 towards the start of the season. And I would say he's one of the more controversial players on the team, not just between fans, And again, kind of doing some background on your Twitter here, I saw from April 2020 that you were a Jeffrey Okudah fan. Now, at the time, the tweet specifies in Matt Patricia's man-heavy scheme. We now know that's no longer going to be the case. But Alex in the chat here, he is selling Jeff Okudah stock into year 2. I am buying all of it. Just curious to see where you land on his second year.
I think there's a lot of reason to want to buy Jeffrey Okudah's stock.
Love it.
He was an excellent, excellent man corner at Ohio State. He's physically uber gifted from an athleticism, size, wingspan perspective. And you can't, in my opinion, especially talking to these coaches, both at the collegiate level and the NFL level, other players as well, you can't understate just how screwed a lot of young talent was, a lot of rookies last year were with the COVID impacted season and the Zoom classes they had instead of practices. I do think you're going to see a lot of different players, both good and bad. I think an underrated conversation for 2021 is how are these rookie quarterbacks going to respond to, completely full stadiums on away turf? Like that's going to be different for Justin Herbert, Tua Tagovailoa, Joe Burrow, where you have to go into a rowdy stadium and win on the road when everyone's kind of cheering and screaming in the stands. That matters. Home field advantage is a thing for a reason. And a lot of that is, obviously fan focused and pressure and these types of things. Travel is a part of that, and that didn't necessarily go away with COVID. But I am interested to see on the positive side, a lot of these rookies, linebackers were really bad last year. Patrick Queen looked slower than he's ever played before. That obviously has to improve for him. I think you see Jordan Brooks improve for Seattle. And cornerbacks, man, it was very rare to see any quarterbacks have any game-to-game consistency. Even Jalen Johnson, who had a lot of success last year, you could see a lot of mental errors on his tape, still thinking a ton. L'Jarius Heath for Kansas City, who's one of the better performing rookie cornerbacks, I think still takes a step forward because you're just going to have so much more opportunity to, 1, adjust to the speed of the game, and 2, really get an opportunity to work with coaches and develop, without Zoom classes and without masks and these different things. So that way you're actually able to improve your skill set. I also think his confidence would be a lot better. Last year they were throwing him into the freaking slot against Devontae Adams and DeAndre Hopkins like that. No one was coming out of that situation with a ton of success. And I think he didn't play a ton of the slot at Ohio State. I talked to Chris Harris Jr. a year ago, and he's like, I don't understand why outside quarterbacks get glorified. They don't have two-way goes like we do. You got two-way goes, man coverage in the slot is so much more difficult, and oftentimes if you're not in a zone-heavy scheme, the most difficult to cover. There's a reason why, when you look at these man-heavy schemes, they ask their best cornerbacks to shadow because you don't want your slot cornerbacks working on DeAndre Hopkins, Michael Thomas, these guys that are working more than 50, 60% of their snaps from the slot. Julio plays a ton from the slot, Michael Thomas, DeAndre Hopkins, Devontae Adams, Keenan Allen is a slot monster when he's put in that position. So I do think that Okudah was given a bad break and he has nowhere to go but up. I think the bigger question is just how much does he improve? I think it'd be awesome to see, given pre-draft expectation, to him vault himself up significantly. But even if you see significant improvement in a PFF grade perspective into the 60s, into the 70s, that's a step in the direction that I think should encourage a ton of Detroit Lions fans.
Simple yes or no. On top of all that, do you think he's a top 15 player on the Lions?
Yes. This Lions roster is atrocious. That is a tough situation to be in. I think you have to, because it's also how you're assessing talent. I think you have to assess talent long term. I think there might be some better veteran players, but maybe you're on the longer end of the tooth. But this is a very bad roster. It's arguably one of the worst rosters in the NFL. I think the only reason the Texans are in a position to where they have a lower win total according to Vegas is because obviously the quarterback situation is still TBD with the civil lawsuits against Deshaun Watson and whether or not he's going to play in Houston. I think to a point, Jared Goff is probably one of the more underrated players. I've had that conversation with Mike on the podcast, and that he has gotten to a point where he's been, I'm not saying he's a top 15 quarterback in the NFL, but my goodness, he should not be, under center for a team that has the second lowest projected win total, just ahead of, a Deshaun Watson-led Houston Texans team. I think he's a lot better than that. We'll have to see how it goes, but I would not be surprised if the Detroit Lions shock a lot of people and that they don't pick, inside the top 3 or top 4 and actually have, a 5, 6, 7 type of pick in 2022.
That was going to lead into my next question. It just seems like there's been a lot of lists that are hating on Jared Goff a little bit. I was just wondering your take on Jared Goff and if he could theoretically be a top 15 quarterback this year, or is that just no chance?
I top 15 would be tough, just because I do think that, there's a lot, when Sean McVay is willing to move on from you as aggressively as they did for what is an upgrade in Matt Stafford, but not a significant one. I do think that's very telling of what Goff is capable of and what Goff is capable of without McVay. I mean, it's a joke on NFL Twitter how much of a puppet, he was with the strings that McVay was pulling. But I mean, does that mean Jared Goff needs those strings? And if given more freedom, what does this Jared Goff look like? I can't imagine it's a train wreck that some are projecting. Like, I do think that Jared Goff, with the experience he's had in the NFL, is not going to regress to what we saw his rookie season. I think a lot of people think that. A lot of people think, his 1 year without McVay, with Jeff Fisher, he was an absolute disaster, called a bust by many people then. That's what we're going to see in this upcoming season. I'm not behind that. I don't think we're going to see that bad of a Jared Goff. It's not going to be as bad as what we saw from maybe Carson Wentz last year, who I thought was maybe arguably the worst quarterback in the NFL last year. I do think Goff is better than that. Is he a top 15 quarterback? Maybe he doesn't get there, but I mean, Lions are going to benefit. I mean, not necessarily benefit from a draft order perspective, but they're going to see, they'd see more wins than a lot of people are expecting if Goff was even a top 20, top 18 type of quarterback in 2021, which easier said than done with the receiving core. But I think another underrated part of the Lions is that offensive line. Like, that offensive line is showing up to be one of the more competent ones. I think they're going to see some second-year development from Logan Stenberg. I think they also have really good tackles. Obviously, Penei Sewell being added there. I think they have an underrated offensive line that DeAndre Swift can progress as well. I think there are more question marks at receiver, but still, I do not think they should be as hated on as maybe some other media are suggesting.
Yeah, I mean, specifically too, and again, the beautiful thing about the sport is we'll get to see when the season plays out. But the one on the list Alex was talking about was beautiful for this show. We loved it because it gave us something to talk about and got us fired up. It was from Bruce Gradkowski at PFF. His list may have changed, but it seems like you're more on our side, because on that list, Jared Goff was 26 in the league, and all of us were like, "Wow, are we just way off on this guy?" And think about, like you said, top 15, because you see names in the top 15 on this list. Like, I don't think Jared Goff necessarily is going to be better than Justin Herbert by any means, or your Tannehills, who's gotten better. I mean, even Stafford. Jared Goff's not in that tier. But when you see some names like Justin Fields and Taysom Hill, Winston combo, and Wentz, we start is that really where he's going to be at? And it just kind of goes I don't know, in your perspective too, is this massive shift that's happened from Jared Goff from 2018 when they were dominating. And I just think back to the Chief shootout game, the Vikings game, and then we landed here. And it's he's a different guy. So kind of that progression, what do you really think is happened there?
So, I mean, I think a lot of it is Sean McVay is well aware of what his ceiling is with Jared Goff, from an offensive efficiency standpoint, from a big play standpoint, and that is what drove him to go chase another guy. I don't think it was necessarily him afraid of the floor; he was afraid of the ceiling. I mean, and I think that's the same thing the San Francisco 49ers saw. When Jimmy Garoppolo was a competent quarterback, same as Jared Goff, took him to the Super Bowl. But you know what the ceiling is with Jimmy Garoppolo. You know what the ceiling is with Jared Goff. And I think when you talk about roster construction and trying to build Super Bowl competitive teams, you can't win a Super Bowl consistently, and that's the goal. People forget the goal in the NFL is not to win a Super Bowl. The goal in the NFL is to be consistently competing for Super Bowls. Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, obviously Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees. Those are teams that consistently competed for Super Bowls, and those teams obviously had Super Bowl competent or Super Bowl competitive quarterbacks. That's not Jimmy G. That's not Jared Goff. And I think that the NFL as a whole would agree to that. Obviously, the coaches respectively agreed to that. So they went to go chase a higher ceiling than Matthew Stafford. with that being said, the Detroit Lions don't care about Jared Goff's ceiling. They know that this roster isn't good enough to win with Jared Goff, and they are aware of what his ceiling is. But his floor is going to make this team a lot better than I think people think. And I think that's where the national narrative has completely destroyed Goff because he did not play to expectation. He was traded away from nothing, and they got 2 first-round picks. I mean, they got with Matthew Stafford and stuff. I do think that the national narrative has dumped on Jared Goff wrongfully, and that his floor is still good. He's going to be better than the Taysom Hill, Jameis Winston combination, in my opinion. I think he's going to be better than a lot of rookie quarterbacks this upcoming year. I think the Denver Broncos situation is obviously worse than what Jared Goff brings to the table. So I do think that you're going to see a better than what people expect Jared Goff. However, that's still going to be a team that barely scratches over 5-6 wins.
Got it. Alex and Evan, throw it out to you guys for any of your last ones before I get my last one in here.
I would say one more interesting person. I know you touched on him a little bit with the offensive line, but DeAndre Swift, is he able to be top 10, top 5, like PFF grade this year with the offensive line and his ceiling?
Absolutely. I mean, I think what's great about running backs too is there's a lot of volatility with, grading and grading well. A lot of it is dependent on, opponent box count, how successful your offensive line is. And, to peel back the layers a little bit on how you grade well as a running back is forcing missed tackles, gaining yards after contact, and really gaining yards above expectation. I think DeAndre Swift was our number 1 back in that class out of Georgia. Really liked what he could do. And his forced missed tackle rate at Georgia, in my opinion, was not a just number because there were so many times on his tape to where he was beating people's angles to a point where they couldn't even, attempt a tackle, and he couldn't even log a forced missed tackle. So I do think that we were higher on DeAndre Swift than a lot of others were as well. And I think that's another situation where rookie coming in with a lot of high expectations with Zoom classes and a COVID impacted season, it's very difficult to live up to those. You're going to see a lot more confidence from DeAndre Swift this year. You're going to see a lot more confidence from the Detroit Lions coaching staff from him, and obviously a more improved offensive line. I would not be surprised if DeAndre Swift is one of the several kind of like reasons to turn the Lions on type of players for them this year.
Mm-hmm.
My final question kind of follows that up a little bit. Who do you think the best player on the Lions is right now?
Man, that's tough. I mean, I want to think about this is a cop out here because I don't think he'll be the best player on the team in 2021. But the player I would call like a core building block, and the number 1 building block is Penei Sewell, because I do think with the pre-draft process we talk about Penei Sewell is this kind of once in a generation offensive tackle prospect, the guy that did things at the Power 5 level at 18, 19 years old that we've really never seen, and I think he can be an Ogden type. But when you think about positional value, and we have this conversation a ton of PFF, is that Jonathan Ogden doesn't move the needle as much as you think it does when offensive line is largely a wink-link unit and you're looking to have completeness, not necessarily eliteness along the offensive line. But I would say, pound for pound, or just, throw positional value out the window, I think he is, objectively one of the, if not the most talented player on this Detroit Lions roster. Offensive line, however, the developmental curve in the NFL, you oftentimes see players take 1-2 years to really progress. Tristan Wirfs is an obvious outlier, but if I had to pick a player to have a Tristan Wirfs-like type of season, I think Sewell is more than capable of that.
All right. So the final one here before we let you go is talk to all the players, talk the philosophy, and everyone likes to give them, and they're usually never right. But if you had to put a win-loss prediction for the Detroit Lions in the first ever 17-game, 18-week season, what would it be?
I think a lot of me wants to float around this 6 or 7 wins, and because we're on a Detroit Lions podcast, I'm going to go more positive. I'm going to say 7 and 10. Yeah, 7 and 10 in regular season, I think, is where my mind goes, and I think that's going to shock people. That's not a good season. You're not going to the playoffs, but that I think will shock people. I think they win 7 games this upcoming season on a 17-game schedule, and there are going to be teams that go into Detroit or have Detroit come to them, and they're like, man, they're up, they're 7, 10-point favorites. But I think they're going to take some L's, man. I think this coaching staff is different. I think this roster has gotten to a point where it's underrated. Jared Goff gotten to a point where it's underrated. It's not a good roster. I spoke to that, but still maybe not as bad as maybe how Vegas sees it or how others see it as well.
Well, people can call it a loser mentality all they want, but I would take 7 and 10. I would take it.
7 would be great for this team.
That'd be nice. And then maybe that'll give people enough stuff to talk about that the whole kneecap sting starts to die down. I mean, over under how many times we're going to hear that every week is going to be.
Talk about an overplayed joke. That joke wasn't funny after day one. I don't know how we continue. I've had that conversation with Mike. It's like, dude, how many more times are we going to try and swing that back? It is just an awful. Yeah. It was funny initially. Yeah. And when that video went viral or whatever, that was great. every single comment that brings that up since then has been horrendous and just honestly lazy. But I'm not even a Detroit Lions fan. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah, like you said, the first time you saw the clip, share it with your buddies. Like, look at this, like making a splash, and then after that, it's like, all right, we get it. Like, our coach says some crazy things sometimes. But like we said, appreciate it, Austin. Towards the end here, obviously, any plugs that you have for your podcast, PFF, go ahead and get out there now for our listeners.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely encourage you to go to PFF.com. That's where I always go. You can follow me on Twitter, PFF_Austin Gayle, Gayle. Listen to 2 4 Drafts, fun podcast on the NFL, the draft, and rookies, and encourage you to listen to this podcast. Continue to do it. Obviously, Detroit Lions podcast. Detroit Lions fans, continue to listen to this one. It's a good podcast. I'm excited to be on it.
Awesome.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you for your time.
Thank you, Austin.
Of course, thank you.
Now, we have two things left. One quick one, one kind of one main topic one. Alex's Rumor Mill segment of the week, presented by Codes Apparel. I'm going to try to throw a layup for you guys this time. Codes Apparel, area code city, Tecumseh, Michigan.
517.
715.
Got one. All right, that felt good. And it'll be tougher next week. But Codes Apparel, CODESAPPAREL.com for all your Michigan area code needs. Shout out Michigan sports apparel as well. Hoodies, long sleeves, t-shirts, variety of colors for all the area codes in Michigan, even ones without the area code if you just want to state in a cool colorway. Go on there and see what you got. Free shipping on orders $75 or more. Now, Alex, your rumor.
Well, there's a lot of rumors going around. It's draft week, so of course there's going to be tons of rumors. But I wanted to keep this week's Rumor Mill segment Detroit-based only, Pistons-based specifically, just to instill some fear in people like Evan. I heard on the radio the other day, 97.1, the ticket from Mike Valenti. His rumor from an inside source, he claims, was that Jalen Green, when he had his workout for the Pistons, wowed the entire staff. It was a Donovan Mitchell-esque, not missing a shot type of workout where Pistons personnel were just floored by his athleticism and ability. And also, he spoke extremely well, definitely made his bed in the morning, every morning. And there's some serious smoke that Troy Weaver and the coaching staff fell in love with Jalen Green that day. Take it for what you will.
I'm sure he did wow them. He has sweet dunks.
So don't be shocked. Thursday night. I'm warning you right now.
That might be my least favorite rumor mill ever.
I didn't think you'd like it.
But people need to know.
People needed to know that.
All right.
No words from Evan because he will not talk Pistons if we talk Jalen Green.
He's not going to stoop to that level. He's a man of integrity. He wants to talk about the Detroit Red Wings. Draft season, baby, full swing. We just wrapped up our draft. The draft took place on Friday and Saturday. Does that sound right? I think it was a 2-day affair.
I thought it was.
It was long, dude.
Thursday, Friday, Saturday?
They beat around the bush so
Just
long
Friday.
on the NHL draft coverage. It's unbelievable. It's like, just announce the pick, my guy.
Are we going to shout out the Michigan players in the top 5?
I was about to. I was just going to get in briefly,
Figured you
like,
wanted
shout out Michigan hockey. High expectations to win this year. Remember, folks, everyone's like, why didn't they win last year? They got COVID.
My dad asked me that.
But also, they didn't have a great Big Ten regular season, which is a fair gripe. But, when you have guys that good, like, they're probably just like, let's just wait till the postseason and just ball out. They got COVID. But they probably will. If all those guys come back, which they said they might, they're going to be disgusting. So maybe I'll watch some more Michigan hockey. I haven't watched a ton.
How are they all going to come back if 5 of them just got drafted in the first round?
It's
You
like,
can still
you
come
go
back.
back
It's
to
like
college.
the MLB where you
Yeah,
have the
but
option.
I figure if they're in 4 of them in the top 5, I assume.
Would you
they're
rather
going
like play
back to
for
college.
Michigan or like the other team we draft from Frölunda, Russia? Like, what? I mean, I'd rather just play in Michigan.
Alright.
Go to Sticky Ricks and
I
When
don't.
they get drafted, those teams still own their rights.
No, I
So they'll still
understand
have
how
to
it
report to
works.
those. Right when the hockey season ends, they'll go right away.
I just don't see them all returning to Michigan, but that's just me.
I don't either. So
yeah, I mean, it could be an all or nothing thing. I don't know. Well, at least one, but the Hughes kid has to go. He hasn't even like played a season there yet. He doesn't have to, I guess, but he probably will. He hasn't experienced it. But briefly, not too briefly, it depends how, Evan, you want to get into it. We made a trade before the draft, which involved the draft because we gave some draft picks.
Robbery.
Alex Needle-Jakovic. I'm going to call him the Needle. I think that's a sweet name. I'm going to call him the Needle or Needler. I don't know. Can't say that name all the time. I'm just going to call him Needle. Some people are saying that he has a great save percentage in the regular season and like led, we posted the tweet, like he led the league in save percentage and goals against average, I believe, which are pretty big stats. We've talked about save percentage before, Evan. You've taught Alex what it necessarily means.
Even though I knew what it meant, yes.
How do you see this trade, Evan?
I had the notification pop up, and then I did my research when I got home. And we fleeced Carolina into trading for a playoff caliber goalie that solidifies that position for the next 2 to 3 years.
He's the 1A
now.
Right?
Oh yeah,
he's the guy.
He's our guy now.
He's our guy
going forward for the next 2 or 3 years, based on whatever. Now we look at the draft, so we'll get to there. But he, like he said, he led the Carolina to a playoff team, and he was available. Now, doing a little bit of research, listening to some things, Carolina is known as like the owner and GM and front office of not overpaying for goalies.
Okay.
So they don't like paying super high goalie price, and so that's why he was on the trade market. Now, we barely gave up anything for him. We gave up I believe, a 2nd-round pick and then rights to
Bernier.
Yes.
Our about to be free agent goalie.
And
correct.
And a bag of peanuts. We threw in the bag of peanuts.
Nice one, Alex.
Correct.
Felt good to get that one off.
And I think this was more of a standpoint where somehow Yzerman found out that he was available and he tested the waters, and it was kind of where Carolina's dumping this guy away for nothing because they don't want to pay him.
It's like when you submit a trade in a video game, like you lowball them, like, yeah, let's just see what they say, and they accept it, and you're like, what?
Yzerman said he was surprised. He's like, you'll have to ask them why they accepted. I don't know.
Or why he was on the market, I believe is what he said.
I think why
They're
accepted.
We don't want to get, we're
Let's
not fake news. They said, they asked him, why were you surprised, or why do you think Needle was on the market? He goes, you'll have to ask Carolina. That's kind of in the cheeky tone that Steve Yzerman likes to do.
He was surprised.
Carolina's on a salary dump. They're trying to get rid of a bunch of players. They traded like 2 more players away. And we're lucky enough to swoop in and draft one. And this helps the rebuild. This is going to help the team currently. We're still a couple of years away. We'll get into that a little bit. But trade, fantastic. We won it 100%.
Love it. Now, for the actual, and I agree too. Like, everything I read, I was like, I like this guy.
Nice job.
So now, the draft itself. Briefly, just a couple top guys. Simon Edvinson, defenseman with the 6th pick. Sebastian Cossa, 15th pick. We trade up. Shea Bowie, I think is how I heard him say it. Defenseman, round 2, 36th pick. And Carter Mazur, left wing center. Red Savage, best name in the draft. After that, go look it up. But top 4 picks we had here. Alex has his hand raised. What's up?
I'm just going to give my draft thought really quick.
Okay.
It's just going to be one. I just have one thought.
I like it.
I don't have a ton of.
Quick and to the point.
I'm not going to lie. I can't put NHL draft analyst in my Twitter bio yet. But the only thing I'll say that I disliked, even though I don't really, because I do trust Steve Yzerman, but our guy Eklund fell to us, correct? And then we didn't take him. Evan, I would like to hear your thoughts on why we didn't take him, and was that a bad move?
Love it. I have these points written down. It was all over the Twitter sphere. There's a bunch of Red Wing fans absolutely wanting to fire Yzerman after we passed him.
I wouldn't do that.
Like the Tigers.
I would not do that.
A Tiger situation.
Correct. And I look at this stance point where you're going into the draft and Yzerman stuck to his plan of what he wanted to accomplish, and he got like a couple of his guys. Edvinson, what you like, what you dislike. I dislike kind of how we moved a lot, gave up little assets, but when you have a bunch of draft picks, you're able to do that, so I get it. I do like how he stuck to a plan, and it seems like we went with it. We passed on Eklund because I think we prioritize defense where there's more better defensemen, and you can, I don't want to say the wrong thing. I would say it's kind of harder to mold or transition defensemen into the NHL quicker based on like their talent gap, and we need that position. And so I was doing research, watching the NHL draft, and you break down of like recent drafts, and I'm going to say why we should have passed on Eklund, which I don't blame him for it.
So since 2013, all the way through 2020, so not counting this draft,
Okay.
we drafted in the first round every single year, and we only took 2 defensemen in 16 and 2019. We took 2 defensemen.
And 19 was Yzerman's first draft.
Correct. And so 13, we took a right wing. 14, we took a center. 15, we took a left wing. 17, we took a center. 18, we took a right wing and a center. We had 2 first-round picks in 18. And then, obviously, last year we took Lucas Raymond. And so it's not like we don't draft offensive players that can score. Yes, it's a big need on the team, but you have Rana, you have a couple guys coming back, and now you have all those draft picks coming through the farm system hopefully soon. You need defense, and you pair them up with Seider. I mean, you have a big front line. I mean, this kid is, I think, 6'4". Seider's right around 6'4". Now you're building a first line for the defense going forward. I'd love to pick. Absolutely. He was one of the top defensemen in the draft. You got him at 6.
He passed.
Did that feel your question?
Yeah.
So you're okay with it?
Absolutely. I'm 100% okay with it.
Based on what you said, I'm okay with it.
It's just not a sexy pick. Everybody wants to goal score because that's how you win, obviously. But going forward, you're going to have to eventually play defense. And I think it was just a smart pick to get one of the defensive guys. And that was like the top position you see a bunch of defensemen go.
I would like to say also, I was never on the fire Yzerman. I mean, always, trust the Yzer plan. I'm very firmly still on that. And I wasn't mad about the pick. I just know we talked about him. And you mentioned he probably wouldn't be there. Then he was. And then we didn't take him anyways. So that's why.
I mean, now going to our next pick, I was shocked that we moved up.
Yeah.
I was shocked that we took Kosa with the goalie that we mentioned that we might take at 6 with Wellstat still on the
Jesper.
board. Everybody that I've been seeing, there's like those goalies were a little bit interchangeable based on who you talked to, but Wellstat was kind of more the favorite to be at 1 because he had more experience and he played tougher competition. However, you look at Kosa's just build. He's 6'6", left-handed catch glove, a little raw. He's super young. I think he's 18 or 19. And so now you have a project 4 or 5 years. You traded for a goalie, excuse me. So now you have time to let that goalie develop in your farm system. Where you draft Wellstat, I think there's more pressure going forward to him to play right away because he's more ready.
Makes sense.
So we still have to, I think I knew this, but like we still have to have a 1B goalie for like a couple of years. Like we need to find something to back up Neil.
Correct. We traded, I'm always going to get this wrong because there's 2 of them.
Starts with the G, Grice. We have
so we have Bernier is still on our team.
No, we just gave the rights to him.
We traded him.
So we have Grice on the team,
Grice.
excuse me.
Yeah.
So Grice is on the team, and then you have Needle is coming over to be the 1A.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Kosa kid, briefly here, just on my whole like overarching for the draft is I took away that like I like this draft a lot as long as we go out at some point and use our free agent dollars we're saving up for offensive guys, which I'm hoping that is the Yzer plan.
Trust the Yzer plan.
And I think so. But going forward, there's one quick point I want to say. Yzerman, this is his 3rd year drafting with the Red Wings.
Yep.
In Yzerman's 3rd year drafting with Tampa Bay, identical draft. I don't know if he did this by chance or he looked it up. Identical draft.
Wow.
Yzerman's 3rd year in Tampa Bay. He had 2 first-round picks. First pick, he went defense. Second pick, he went goalie. You know who goalie that was?
Probably that guy.
Vasilevsky, who's probably the best goalie in the NHL right now. You're going to question him on picking a goalie in the first round?
Nope.
I don't think I would.
I don't think I'd question
by the way, Tampa Bay just
does.
won back-to-back Stanley Cups. I wouldn't question Yzerman because he built that team from the ground up.
How do you do? Yeah, and I like intangibles. He's 6'6", huge. Like, so just standing there, he's taking up a lot of the net. He had a .945 save percentage in his league, which is very impressive. That's, you get into the 95% range of saving pucks is unbelievable.
Played in a weaker competition, didn't play as often, just so you know.
Good to know as well to balance it out. The other thing I'm going to lean on here, again, we saw his appearance for the preview, went back to the well on, I asked him what he wanted to be called. One of our fans on Instagram, Pods Wing Insider Liam, PWIL Liam. The only negative he had on Kosa from whatever he's seen is his rebound control is a little suspect sometimes, but that's okay. We can work on that. But
can't be giving up juicy rebounds. Number one rule in NHL.
Right, but when you have sweet defensemen who can get rid of it, that's okay.
Thank you, Grant.
But overall, it seemed like he liked the defenseman picks. He did say about Edmondson that he's a smooth skater, which I think is huge. When you have these tall guys, you don't want them to look like baby deer on ice. So if you can skate well, that plays out. And he also agreed with you, Evan, that him and Seider are like the perfect mesh with Edmondson being a lefty to kind of run. It feels like Yzerman is trying to build our blue line like it's the Berlin Wall or like the Great Wall of China. Like we just want tall men at the tall men with Swedish baby faces, kind of just sitting there, and that also have offensive talent that aren't just like mushes when trying to clear the zone. So I think that's the strategy. Again, Redmond Savage on the name alone, love it. Don't really need to see him do anything else, to be honest with you, other than his name.
Savage.
Like that name is going to be in the playoffs. So that kid's already going to make our team. An interesting point, Evan, I was doing a little bit of digging at our past first round picks because the Svechnikov, look at that pronunciation, news happened that we got rid of him, Evgeny. And you talked about those Ken Holland picks and the forwards. I think like 4 out of the 6 of them we don't even have on our team anymore because we've identified them as like not even being worth our time. So that just tells you that Ken Holland was out there just out to lunch on some drafts. And that explains why maybe Yzerman's like, you know what, let's nail down the backside of this team. And then I can go spend money on guys I evaluate that are already in this league. We've been linked to rumor mill Tyler Johnson from the Lightning. We talk about Eichel. We talk about all these guys. We go spend our money on those guys as well as bringing up Raymond and, get Larkin back, get Bertuzzi back, get the offense going. I think it'll all balance out.
Tyler Johnson's the shorter speedster from the Lightning, correct?
He's a 4th liner, but like he'd be like a probably 3rd or 2nd liner on our team as of right now. He was very good. He used to be very good.
Yeah,
he's no Braden Point now. Braden Point's their guy. One of their guys.
Well, Evan told the plan last week. We're going to sign a bunch of awesome players, and we're going to be in the Stanley Cup Final. So.
Now, with the plan, though, I wrote down here because you see it all over the internet. This kind of, and Alex has said it.
Trust the Yzer plan.
7 times already. There's 8.
Because I'm trusting.
Just trust Yzerman. Trust the Yzer plan. Is it lazy? It feels lazy just to be like, oh, just trust him then or what? Because like then people are like, what? How dare you question Yzerman? Like I get it, but then also like we're allowed to have our own opinions about the draft picks.
No, you're not. No, he built a non-hockey city into a back-to-back Stanley Cup champion.
Okay,
you're just gonna be like, you know what? It's lazy to trust that guy.
Well, Alex, you don't question any GMs. You're like, you're going to wipe Troy Weaver's butt for him.
I question Al Avila almost every podcast, and the Tigers don't deserve our breath this week, so I don't get to this week.
Fair. You did balance it out with that.
I don't know if it's lazy. You're allowed to critique the draft picks, don't get me wrong, but I think you do need to trust him in what he's doing. He has a method to his madness. I mean, we were talking about like future, what we're going to do in the future. And if you look at the current NHL free agency starts on Wednesday when you're listening to this, starts tomorrow for us.
That's awesome.
We're not going to sign anybody flashy. And the people that we have re-signed, they're like 1 year, 2 year contracts. These are filler guys. Basically a tryout if you're not over 32 to try out to make the team to stay with the current team. And with like the young talent coming up, the defensive talent, don't get me wrong, I believe Yzerman will make a splash on a big name free agent within the next 2 years. We missed out on Stamkos. He never got to free agency. So I 100% believe we will get a top talent. And hey, next year we have a bunch of other draft picks. Who knows what we can do with those? We'll be in the top of the draft again. So I trust them. I like the draft and I like where we're going. We're getting better.
And like you said, for the free agency, I looked at that. Like the biggest offensive name is Gabriel Landeskog. I mean, that doesn't really move anything. So I guess I'm like, if we're going to make a splash, it's going to be through a trade, which is kind of what we've kind of hinted at. We're going to have to give up some of those draft picks and some young guys to acquire an Eichel, to acquire said player. Like we're going to have to. In Eichel's camp, the agents still want him out of there bad. So something's got to happen there. Yeah, and the other thing I need to mention is I know like you're giving up stuff, and we like capital, but you have to use capital, aka hint to the Oklahoma City Thunder. You have to use the capital. I like that he identified at 15. He's like, I want this goalie now. Yes, maybe I can get him later. He went and got his guy. Go get your guy. If you have a guy, don't just get your guy, move up for the sake of moving up. If you have a guy that you like, and you're like, I'm worried about him falling based on all the rumors from the other GMs, they might take him here. Go get your guy. Use the capital if you have to.
Can't wait to see Troy Weaver do that for Corey Kispert. It's going to be awesome.
That would be shattering. And if maybe Saku Dumbu is gone. I feel remiss before we close this all out. The Tigers are down 4-1 in the bottom of the third. So
I told you
Badu did hit the home run to give us our run, and he's been on a tear recently. So love to see that AL Rookie of the Year.
Badu for AL Rookie of the Year. Tigers for last in the Central.
ooh, spicy.
Next week's episode is going to be hot. Alex is going to recap his big tournament, the trade deadline for the Tigers, see what we do there.
Yes.
Draft talk.
Pistons, when they draft Cade Cunningham and they don't blow it. Packed show next week. Get ready for it.
It's going to be a good one.
Excited. All right. Oh yes, before we cheers. Social accounts. I always feel like it's a Debbie Downer before the cheers. But at @ShotOffMS on everything except for TikTok. That's at @ShotOffMichigan Sports, all the way spelled out. That's where you see clips. That's where you see polls, our graphics. We're doing some quote graphics now, just trying to work in some new things on the social accounts. You can interact there, comment, DM us on there, anything you want. We really appreciate it because it makes it more fun for everyone. Our Gmail is @ShotOffMichigan Sports. No, it's ShotOffMichiganSports @gmail.com. That's any business stuff. If you want to advertise with us, you can send any questions there as well. How do you listen to this show physically? Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube for now, all audio only versions. Like I said, social media is where you see the clips as of now. And if you're on those platforms, whatever one they specify, follow it. Give it a good rating, 5-star rating and review. Subscribe to it if you're on YouTube. And you know what? Toss the link to a friend. Like, hey, listen to this. Disagree with them. I agree with them. What do you think? And again, timestamps, people. If there's things you don't like that we talk about, you can jump around. Go to the timestamps. That's why they're there. And then, like I said, as always, questions. Anything you want to talk about, any topic ideas, any hot tips you have for us, any rumors you have for Alex, just send them. Email, DM, doesn't matter. And with all that being said, let's cheers to close out episode 31 to drafting Cade Cunningham and the prophecy being fulfilled.
The logical cheers here is to Cade Cunningham.
Cheers to me buying a Cade Cunningham jersey on Friday night.
It'd be huge.